Jekyll and Hyde personalities, all or nothing. I love you, I hate you. Come here, get away from me. It's like pulling down a slot machine and you never know what the heck you're going to get. And it tears you up inside. It is an emotional tug of war and you're being ripped from both sides. It feels so good when they're showering you and they're loving you. And it feels like your heart is being ripped out of your chest when they pull that love away. Today, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. I'm Heidi, by the way. If you're new here, welcome home. If you find something you love here that helps you, please subscribe and like the videos. It helps us help more people. What we do around here is we deal with dysfunctional relationships, all about codependency and toxic relationship recovery. And certainly a Jekyll and a Hyde personality is a very toxic type of relationship. So I want to riff on this a little bit with you and give you some strategies so that you can deal with this person in your life and really make a decision if this is a ride you want to go on, if this is a pendulum that you want to swing on, like you came in like a wrecking ball, okay? You came in like a wrecking ball, and that's what this feels like. You know, the inconsistency is the biggest problem, right? It's easier to deal with somebody when you just know straight up they're a jerk or they're a mean person or they're self-absorbed or they're selfish or they're any number of these things. And it's predictable. You know, well, the sun's coming out, they're going to be a jerk. Okay. Like the sun goes up, just like the grass grows, they're a jerk. Predictable. But if somebody's all nice, you're like, oh yeah, it's consistency. Some of us who grew up in dysfunction or toxicity, that can be a little boring, right? That kind of like, when are they going to turn terrible? And they never do, but you're always waiting. But the most challenging situation is when you ride in that pendulum back and forth. Now, just to clarify, I'm not talking about a typical withholder personality. You guys know I deal in these different, I've created a way to describe codependency in an everyday type of language with 8 different attachment personality patterns that I've written about. I've written a book about that you can get for free, download on my site, lovecoachheidi.com. So withholders have a tendency to restrict when they're feeling vulnerable, their affection, their attention, their approval, their intimacy, they restrict and withhold. But it's not this, what I'm talking about stems way beyond this and goes into the level of even more dysfunction when it's this giant pendulum swing back and forth. And so I want to talk about what you need to know when you're dealing with a person like this and some of maybe a way that we can look at this a different way so that you can navigate this a little easier. So I want to first talk about what happens. I have some notes here because I don't want to miss anything. What first happens for most people when they're in a relationship with the Jekyll and Hyde personality is the very first thing you do, because they're not consistently mean or consistently nice. They're nice sometimes and mean other times. You automatically and quite reasonably think that it's all about you. Well, it must be me. Because they're able to be nice, they're able to love me, so I must be doing something that's turning them off or upsetting them. And so when that happens, you launch into one of the other personality patterns, like fixing, thinking, okay, well, maybe that person needs to work on themselves so you launch into all the ways to help to fix that person. Or you launch into the pattern of people pleasing, where you're like, well, what can I do to make sure that I'm always on their good side? How can I endear myself to them? How can I make less waves? How can I not walk on eggshells with this person? Or not break any eggs. Or you launch into perfectionism, thinking if I'm just better, they'll be better. I can't tell you how many times from my students in my life school, the group that we have, Love Yourself First Empowerment School, I hear that all the time. If I could just be better, they'll be better. That's not the case. You find that even though you're trying to be perfect and keep all your ducks in a row and not upset them, and you're walking on the eggshells and you're trying your best, there's still that Jekyll and Hyde pendulum swing. So you end up feeling, again, confused, frustrated, desperate, hurt, lonely, sad, and then you launch into whatever coping strategies you have for that feeling, which could be self-destructive too. Maybe you drink, maybe you isolate, maybe you shop, maybe you try harder and go more pleasing, any number of behaviors that you launch into. And again, it just starts all over. And you can be in this dance for how long? How long can you be in this dance? For the rest of your life. So here's my best piece of advice for you today in dealing with a pendulum swinger, okay? I wonder if you would ask yourself the question, what if this behavior had absolutely nothing to do with you? What if this Jekyll and Hyde was just a Jekyll and Hyde and you couldn't do a darn thing to mitigate that or change that? And I know you might be saying, well, they're not that way with everybody. They're just this way with me. I'm going to guarantee you that other people are having similar experiences to varying degrees of this person. Okay. And if they really are, if you really are the only person that they're doing this with, it's likely because you're tolerating it and other people aren't. Okay. That you're their supply and they're saying, oh, I can get away with it in this relationship, so let me keep doing it. All right. So at the end of the day, let's ask ourselves this question. What if their behavior was just because that's how their nature, that they're a Jekyll and Hyde? And again, I don't want to get into why they're that way, but I can tell you what happens. Some people get hung up here and they go, yeah, it is just the way they are, because you know what? They grew up in a toxic, abusive, addicted situation and they haven't worked through their stuff yet. And, you know, their mother was that way, or their dad was a narcissist, or their dad left him, or whatever. What happens is you can get into what I call toxic compassion, which is you get so good at understanding why somebody is treating you so poorly that gives you enough reason to keep staying in it. Because you're like, oh, I can understand it. But just because you can make sense of somebody's bad behavior doesn't mean that you should tolerate it. All right. Just because you can wrap your head around it doesn't mean you should be in it. That's a big distinction there. All right. So if their behavior is how they are because of their own wiring, then you can sit back and ask yourself, do I want to ride this pendulum ride? If they never change, do I want to ride the ride? If this isn't about me and there's nothing I can do I want to ride this pendulum? If this behavior is going to continue on where they're going to be Jekyll and Hyde with me and they're going to love me and hate me and be all this back and forth, is this a journey that I want to take? Now, the only time that you would ever say, yep, yes, is because you still have a self-esteem issue. And that person triggers that up for you. So whenever they're disapproving of you or taking their love away from you or rejecting you, it fires up your own neurotic, ideas about your value. So you launch into proving mode. So again, if you keep signing up for this behavior and you're willing, because in a healthy person, we're not going to keep subjecting ourselves to this. We're not going to keep showing up for it over and over again. We're going to draw some boundaries around it. We're going to take some measures to protect ourselves in this environment. Even if you feel like you have to be in it because it's a parent, you don't have to be in anything, by the way. You can remove yourself from parental relationships, family relationships. I mean, I know that's kind of like, how the heck do you do that? Because society-wise and even culturally wise, that can be a big no-no for a lot of people. But just because you're born into a family or you have a family that is toxic or dysfunctional doesn't mean that you have to willingly show up for it and be in it all the time. You can set boundaries around it. So if you're feeling like you have to be in it, or you're feeling like, you can keep signing up for it, then that's a deeper conversation that we need to have around why is that so? What is it in you that's still unhealed that you feel like, yep, I can take it? I know a lot of people, I work with a lot of people who feel like they've survived so much shit in their lives that they are so good at taking it. I've had clients even say to me, is that all you got? Bring it on. Do you know that's a really toxic and unhealthy and dysfunctional way to look at things? Because you can handle a lot of shit. That's our claim to fame. I used to do it too. I get it. Oh, I can put up with your stuff because I'm so great at putting up with shit. That's not a claim to fame. That's an issue. That's a problem, right? You shouldn't be good. You shouldn't have like a black belt in eating people's shit, like that's your claim to fame. I get it. And I'm making light of it, but you and I both know it's not funny. It's at the end of the day, it leaves you feeling depleted, like you have no support from anybody else. And again, that back and forth is a head game. And you feel like you never know what you're going to get from 1 minute to the next. So I want to help you rectify that. I want to help you understand why you're in this situation, or how, and if it's an intimate relationship, how maybe you came to this position with this person. If it's a family relationship, I want to help you unpack that and untangle and untether from that. We have lots of ways to do that over at lovecoachheidi.com. There are lots of free resources. Go ahead and download that free book. That's probably step one. It is the attachment personality patterns. It explains the different patterns that we get into and why we are the way we are, and you can can see other people's patterns as well. And let's start a conversation to deepen our connection. Also, you can schedule a consultation over there. You can check out the programs that we have. It would be my heart's desire to really help you navigate this and break free from these toxic and dysfunctional patterns, especially not just for us, but for the generations going forward, right? We've got to do better. Let's be cycle breakers, all right? Anyway, I love you so much. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, again, what we're talking about is stepping away and looking at somebody's behavior without internalizing it. If it's not about you, do you want to sign up for this ride? Are you going to be on the wrecking ball? Do you want to be on the wrecking ball? Do you want to be on the other receiving end of the wrecking ball? And if the answer is no, I don't, I want to help you break free from that. I love you. Subscribe and like the video. Take excellent care of yourself, and I'll see you really soon. Okay? Bye.